Segregation, or no, storage-wise, well, also segregation. If you have an open container, the segregation is more rigid. So, in that case, you need to know when is a container an open container and when is it a closed container. So you go to the definition and you say the moment there's a torque plug in it, for example, an open top container with a torque plug is not a closed container. A crate. A crate is basically a wooden box where you have one or two of the planks is removed so that there is no way of build-up of pressure or temps coming out. Inner packaging, inner packaging is something that needs an outer packaging. And that may sound a bit funny, but that's what you need to know in quite a few cases. Do you need a box around it, or can you put it loose in the container? Drums, have a look at the definition, but the main thing is the bold text. Yeah. A wooden barrel looks like a drum, but it's not considered a drum. And jerry can, same story. And if you look at later chapter 4, part 4, you will see that, for example, a jerry can you can go to 75 kilograms, and a drum you can go to 400 kilograms. So yes, you need to know what it is in order to check whether it's within the allowed limits. Flashpoint, again, nice definition. The main thing to know is that if the liquid cannot be ignited if outside the temperature is below the flash point. Yeah, so a liquid is not dangerous in the Netherlands and it can be dangerous here. Because it's now 13 degrees in the Netherlands. Units of measurement, I already mentioned it earlier. You use a calculator normally to do that, but you can use the book as well. Abbreviations I ignore. Similar to definitions, you can look in the books and then find out what it means if that's necessary. Why do you need training? Well, this is a bit of an overview of what goes wrong with dangerous goods containers after several countries did an inspection. This is not in the IMSBC code. This is more in relation to the training, what we are having here. If the documentation is wrong, you don't know what's happening. Yeah. And it can be wrong in many ways. It can be that it's a little bit incomplete. It could be that there is no documentation whatsoever. Yeah. Placard and marking. Personally, I'm not so worried about that one, because it doesn't become more dangerous if the placard is damaged. But these kind of things really worry me, but we'll see that also in the next few slides. Yeah. This was almost 10 years ago. You see a lot of countries reporting the results of the inspections. Well, a lot. You would like to see, IMO would like to see 150 countries reporting inspections, so then it's very small. But so you report what, how many deficiencies there are in total. Yeah. There's a whole list. There's also a circular on what you should inspect on. So do you inspect containers like opening doors, etc. in the port? Does anybody do that? So you have no container inspection program for the port areas? Okay, that's something you can implement after this week. Yeah, so there's a circular that gives you details on what you should inspect and how to report it to IMO. And then, well, if you do it, then they will add you to the list of countries that have done it. If you look at Belgium, 35%. And if you look at the European countries, Finland 24, Germany 45, the Netherlands, when they did the inspections or they reported it, looking normally at between 35 and 50%. In other countries, they are much less. Yeah, this is still, these are the worrying ones. If the label is wrong, you don't have a fire. If it's incorrectly declared, you don't have a fire itself, but it's easier to start. But if the packaging is damaged, if the segregation in the container is not correct, then you run a big risk. So those are the things that you for sure should do some checking on. CCC 7, that's about, is it 3 years? I think 3 years ago, yeah, 2019. Only 4 countries have reported their results. So whether all the countries I'm not inspecting or whether they simply do not report it to IMO, that remains a bit unclear. But if you see Hong Kong, total of deficiencies of 2, then I don't think they inspected many containers. Or they needed training on how to inspect the container. Maybe that's the reason. Yeah. But if you look at the United States, 5,000 containers with a problem. In the United States, usually you get a fine if there's something wrong, so somebody is going to make money. As you can see, all the Northwest European countries, which normally, till a few years ago, they reported it, they don't report anymore. And why that is? I don't know. What IMO does, in this case it was easy because only 4 countries, but they put all the information in an Excel spreadsheet and then make a nice graph out of it. As you can see, 7, 8 years ago and now again, the placarding and marking is the biggest problem. Yeah, because this is packaging and this is the container, so the rest is pretty a smaller part, but if you have like this, percentage-wise, if you look at a 24,000 TEU vessel, you have 13,000, 14,000 containers on board. And if you then have 1 or 2% which are wrong, dangerously wrong, then it is surprising we only have a few fires every year, serious fires. What was it? Yeah, every 50 days or something like that, we have a fire on board the ship. But usually that are engine room fires and cargo fires, which are very limited. If you don't do inspections yet, but if you intend to do it, start using Gigas in order to report it to IMO. Training. Depending on your job role, I mean, most of you, I think, are from authority kind of part. So then you are the lowest one. 12 and 13 are not added in this one. If you want to inspect containers or you want to inspect companies who deal with dangerous goods, you need to know basically everything. So you need to know the full code, and that's going to happen this week. So this chapter 1, 2, up to chapter 7. And based on the job role, so if you would expect, for example, shippers in your area, you can say, okay, well, you prepare transport documents or you load the containers, and these are the items you at least need to be trained upon. Next to the IMDG code, you also have other legislation that you need to be trained in some cases. SOLAS, port regulations, national regulations if applicable. CSC, is the container fit for the cargo, etc. etc. Security, after 9/11, we had ISPS basically introduced, depending on your port area and the type of cargo. I'm sure your port is compliant with ISPS, otherwise there would be a big problem. Again, you should be familiar. It doesn't really say trained, but yeah, over here they mentioned training is also needed. What are high consequence dangerous goods? Yeah. Which cause a lot of casualties, end of mass destruction, and a very short summary of it is 2.1, flammable gas. If you have it in these sizes, then you have to have a plan, a security plan. Toxic gases, there's no limit to it, so that will be in your port available on each and every ship most probably. Questions? Are we allowed to ship all dangerous goods? No? Do we all know where we can find whether we can ship all dangerous goods or not? Where that is written in IMDG code? Have you all found it? So the idea of this whole week is that you find your way in the code. So the questions are based on finding, and we dealt with just with chapter 1, so there's of part 1. So it's expected that you can find the answer somewhere in part 1. In this case in 1131. Yeah, the top one we discussed already, so that's an easy one. Yeah. But on a multimodal dangerous goods declaration, we have to fill in box 3, carrier. Do we know what it is? Who's the carrier? Is that the shipping line? Is that the truck driver? Is that the company who, the stevedore? What needs to be filled in the dangerous goods declaration? Yeah, so we don't know what it is, the carrier. Well, maybe you do know already, but if you don't know, you go to the definitions, and then you find carrier, and then you find the answer. Have you found it? Yeah, so in most cases, on the multi-model dangerous goods declaration, it will be the shipping line that's entered. The problem with that form is a little bit if you have 2 or 3 transshipments with a container and you have only one format, then it's you have to strike through, etc. So that's why it's quite often not filled in. But if you fill it in, you must know who needs to fill it in. We have a 4G fiberboard box. 12 aerosols in it, or 12 cans in it, whatever you like. Is that a combination packing? Or a composite packing?
Combination. Packaging. Composite.
It's combination. But you check the definitions. Where do you find it in definitions? You go to combination and composite, you find the definitions and you go.
Combination.
The answer is combination.
Combination.
But you will find it in the, over there.
You all found it?
Yes, they have here.
Combination ก็เอาไปรวมกัน
Yeah, so again, if you don't know it, you go to the definitions, you find both, and then normally it should be clear what it is. Other question. When do you need to require, you need to book a container as elevated temperature? Do you all know what elevated temperature is in the first instance? This was the first court case I had that was in New York. That my client had cargo of 95 degrees Celsius, so that's not an elevated temperature. And so for that reason, there was no reason that he should have declared it. But I told the party against it, said because of your warm cargo, my cargo did catch fire. And as a result of that, the IMSBC code was changed. So if you have now products with a stabilizer inside, you cannot ship it anymore as a class 9 product. So if it's a class 4 product with a stabilizer, it still remains a class 4 product. And that way you can stow it in a different position and you won't have a ship fire anymore. Yeah, if you look at, I mean, I can continue to write down, of course, every definition, but that's not the idea for today. But a good one is this one: an overpack, a unit load, and a large packaging. If I put them in the room here, they look exactly the same. Yeah, basically they are large wooden boxes or a firewall box on a pallet. Yeah, so you need to know by reading the definition when it's an overpack. For example, if it's an overpack, you need to put on the label overpack. Well, you don't need to put that label on a unit load. Yeah. So if you don't know what it is, then you go to the definitions, and then you see what the differences are. And without going to the definition specifically, but do we all know what the transboundary move is? Yeah, that is a term we use when we move waste from one country to another country. Yeah, so to conclude, if you're not 100% sure what the term means, you go to the definitions. And the definitions is, the main part is in 1.2. But in chapter 7 you have a few definitions. Basically every part has also a few definitions which are related to that part. So, am I on time?
จริงๆแล้วมันโวลูมส่วนใหญ่มันเริ่มทำงานมันเริ่มจากโวลูม2นะครับโวลูม2เราจะไปตอนนี้ครับมันเป็นอะไรนะโวลูม2ตัวที่มอดมันเริ่มเปิดมันทำงานด้วยโวลูม2ก่อนนะครับวิธีการแล้วจะค่อยไปมาในโวลูม3เรื่องของคนเป็นขนาดนี้โวลูม2เป็นไปเลยแต่จริงๆถ้าเกิดมันต้องไปไม่วิธีการง่ายๆแบบนี้ก็มีโวลูม2อย่างเงี้ยแล้วทุกอันมันเป็นเล็กๆหมดแล้วดูก่อนเลยนะ
May I inform them in Thai language? Yes. ครับก็เดี๋ยวหลังจากนี้ก็จะเบรกกาแฟนะครับแล้วก็มาอีกทีบ่าย 3:15 นาทีนะครับก็อย่างที่